Welcome to DistroCast, where we're building the future of media in the open. We're doing this by talking about all of the new features we're building, but also all of the problems we're trying to fix. There's a lot wrong with distro. We're just building it from scratch. And what we want to do is show you warts and all how it's going. We're not just building the media protocol of the future, but this is kind of like a show about building the media protocol of the future. And we want you to join us on this journey and help us if you want and come along with us one way or the other. Our goal is to adhere to open source principles and take it a step further by recording our meetings and development milestones. At the same time, I'm publishing stories all the time on Distro Media. Coding Journal is the name of the newsletter, explaining what we're doing, and these often include diagrams and demo videos, and yes, explanations of stuff that went horribly wrong. So we're producing a lot of content about how we are building, and we've launched this show to pull everything together. Today, we're going to cover one of our most important and innovative features of the Distro Media platform, our MCP server, which allows you to publish stories directly from within your AI platform, directly to distro. And we'll talk about JournalBot, our new editorial agent. First up, let's talk about this MCP server. I built Distro Media and Distrobot because I wanted a different experience from my years of being a journalist to publish. I spent a ton of time logging into clunky backends, fiddling with CMS settings, the annoying grunt work that comes when you're trying to publish a story. And all of these newsrooms have them, and every journalist I know usually hates them. So I wanted to design one that was super easy to use and more intuitive, and that's kind of what I did. But then to supercharge the publishing workflow, I built this MCP server, which allows you to basically use your AI to help you on a lot of the super annoying stuff that otherwise you would spend a bunch of time fiddling with. The big idea here is that it allows you to spend more time reporting and writing, talking to your sources, and thinking about how you're going to tell these stories to get readers. Let's get into it. We built two MCP servers, and we have the CLI, and they're all working really well.
And we have a new endpoint for the new version that's coming out.
Yeah.
In beta out there as well. So
this is hot January because this literally just came out last week, this new framework for how MCP is going to work. And Vaskin jumped on it.
Stateless versus stateful.
Yeah, Vaskin, you're probably one of the first developers to really dig in the world.
This is one of the things that made the browser very popular because it was a stateless communication protocol. So when MCP was first announced, it was stateful, and that was one of the things. It was stateful and also local only at first.
Yes, please, Vaskin. Just explain what that means.
So when it goes back to old school client server communications. When a client opens a connection to a server, it keeps it on all the time until it gets an answer, and then it does something, and that takes a long time to do. Stateless interactions are more like, I want to do something over time, but I'm going to just get a little state of what you're looking at now, like a browser web page, and then you want to click on it. When I click on it, like 5 seconds later, something else will happen, and I'll get the state back from the server, and I'll go back and forth with it instead of having to keep an open connection, which is very expensive. So it basically makes MCP more like a web browser than a constant on connection to a server, where it just loads a page and loads another page and loads another communication element one at a time. So it's much more, it's easier to disperse the network traffic and get a lot more people using it at the same time on a particular endpoint.
And so how would you describe the benefits again, like real quick?
I think it's a proper evolution of MCP. The benefits are just like web browsers were stateless. They don't have to maintain an open network connection. They just define what the next step will look like in this protocol, and they go back and forth.
And what was your experience? And so have you completely rebuilt one of the MCP servers, or both of them, or
Yes.
what have you done with that? Both of them. Okay.
Yep. Both of them have version 2 endpoints that are in the advanced section in the connect area. And those are for folks that are testing this new paradigm, this new specification. So it's already run through the internal tests with the test suite that is given out by this new spec. So internal tests work basically, and then any new clients that come out that support this spec, we should point them there and try them out. If new ones get announced soon, or if one of the major chat players starts providing Rails for this new MCP spec, then we should be able to connect it up to those endpoints. And they'll work the same way with the same accounts on distro.
Okay, well, that's where the MCP server is now. We did make a ton of progress on this week, migrating to this new standard, trying to get ahead of it. Everybody's going to have to do this with their MCP servers. The MCP standard is brand new, and it's constantly evolving. And we're just trying to stay on top of it. We are actually ahead of the curve, which is cool. And that's partly because Vaskin jumped on this as soon as he saw it. Now, let's get into our next topic. JournalBot. JournalBot was not the easiest to set up. It is quite complicated. It uses a framework called Hermes, which is becoming super popular. In some ways more popular than OpenCloud, which was like incredibly viral earlier this year. And Vaskin set up JournalBot to run on this Hermes network. But then we were also sick of all the problems we were having with Claude and OpenAI, which just wasn't working too well to power Distrobot, our corporate agent. And so we decided to build JournalBot to use a totally different system. It's used decentralized computing. Basically, it allows you to use open source models, which are, generally speaking, I think less expensive than some of the like Claude or OpenAI's models. And they're basic, you can examine them. And if you use this decentralized network, you're not dependent on one particular server to run your AI. And you also get some privacy features. And we also used another feature that is makes it so that it's self-funding. That sounds weird, but it's actually true.
Talk about that spark inspiration and how it pivoted into the Hermes combo with Morpheus to create a JournalBot that now we get to train, which is the exciting part I want to talk about at some other time. But let's go back to that connection, if you can explain that.
Yeah, so Brad reached out to me about Everclaw and the Morpheus project, and it was basically just setting up a new provider for Hermes. So Hermes has a way to hook up to different providers, and they just have an endpoint that's similar to all the other ones. So it's a custom provider that was implemented for hooking it up to the system. And when we got it hooked up, basically you had staked some, I forgot the coin's name. Brad, remind me. The coin was Morpheus. More, that's right.
MOR.
You staked, yeah, you staked some more, and basically the interest on that could be used to run the queries that we were running when we first set it up. and it routes it to GLM 5.1. The only problem with that is it doesn't have a vision model, but with a workaround, we can add Kimi 2.5 or 2.6, I forget, that has vision. So I can give vision capabilities to the bot.
So we have 50 more tokens staked. And I think it's like $2.50 or something. So let's say that's like $125 worth of more tokens. And it's yielding 15 cents per day of credits, dollars. And that goes a strangely long way, actually. We set up JournalBot, and then we still, I mean, as Vaskin's been bugging us to like program its soul. But also we have to, once you build this thing, then you have to figure out exactly how to use it. And we've been we wanted to use it to help us manage our content pipeline. And it turns out that it cannot do that with the Slack project manager. So January, you and I have been talking about, I think we need to do Google Sheets for our project tracking, and then JournalBot will basically be able to manage our content pipeline. I think that is like the sort of easiest thing that it would do for us, right? So, I mean, I'm thinking about that's why we haven't really done a whole lot with JournalBot yet, because we're so busy with all the other stuff, just like everybody else in this world has a million things going on. And
yeah, but Brad, back it up. JournalBot is like 2 weeks old, okay? And you're like moving on, like you're a bad baby daddy. You're just leaving all your bots, being like, okay, raise yourself now. I'm done. I made you, spinning them off.
I'll be back.
Left and right.
I'm coming back.
That's why I'm getting these questions at Vaskin, because I'm like, we need to structure ourselves. Yeah. Because I want to train this baby. Like, we only A students in this family. And I want to know how to structure that correctly, so it comes up with the right soul and ethics to be my ultimate JournalBot. I may have to spin up my own. But this is the start of it. And
you don't trust my ethics on the
we have to agree on our co-parenting style.
Hey, we share JournalBot.
Okay, right. I know.
I love all my agents equally.
This is actually a concern for organizations as they go through this process, because they each, like, OpenClaw was made to be a personal agent, not an employee type of agent. Like, it's literally not built to do that. It's literally built to be a personal assistant. So people have been now using that pattern to build other agents, but there's no a lot of the best companies that are using AI in the coding space, like some of the famous ones like Stripe, are getting together with a team of people that are using the same agent. They're building on it together as a team. So they're not just building their product, but they're building their agent, how it should. Those little internal choices are what enable these agents to work across an enterprise and not just be a personal agent.
That's true. And talking about a JournalBot, when we're talking about the context of training it on the ethics of journalism and process and values and these things, that memory, the reference, right? We can have the AP guide for style, but that's different than these values decisions that we have to make as journalists all the time. But we do have guidelines with ethics and conflict of interests and main principles that are really tied to the Constitution and how journalists really hold people accountable to that. But I won't go on about that. But what you're talking about with memory is quite interesting, and it makes me think about how our AI constructs and has memory, and how we do too, because we think about like, oh, I have a memory, it's in a box, and I reference that same memory every time. But in fact, they've shown with humans, you actually reconstruct it from different pieces of your brain every time you try to recall that memory. And that's why our memory changes.
And you often reconstruct it correctly.
And so
Very, very
is
often.
AI doing that as well? Like it's reconstructing a memory every time, or once we're teaching it, if we've made it a skill, it's going to stay hard and reference that memory in a box?
So the way the skills are written, they're written in natural language, and so they can be modified over time. Think of it more as like a standard operating procedures document that you can give to an employee. It should be formed like that, with discrete things that you can measure. If you give it subjective decision capabilities, then yeah, it's going to be different based on what model it is and what day it is, and it's non-deterministic in that sense. Building agentic workflows is about reducing those types of decisions, but also automating the other types of decisions that are just easy, that make sense. And if you have a standard operating procedure, there's skills types memories, and also like the knowledge base type memory, like I talked about with Karpathy's LM wiki. It's for putting concepts together, and a lot of those memory systems are very, very new. They're I mean, the LM wiki tweet that started it is probably like less than 3 months old, probably at this point. But people have built on that concept, and there's a whole bunch of memory systems out there for agents. So I think the jury's still out on the best way to do that. Some people use graph databases to put concepts together. LM Wiki basically makes a graph database with markdown files. Some people say HTML is better than markdown now. So the way the memory is stored may make a big difference in how it's affected in the model.
How it's reconstructed into what you think is facts or output.
So it's very, it's very hard to lock down things if you're switching models. If like this week Anthropic is throwing you off the plan, and you don't have enough credits and you have to switch over to Codex, and like
that's what's happening.
Affects the layer above it. So these skills and memories and things like that can be thrown off track because it's not using one consistent model. And you're also like, when the new model comes out, you're using the newer model, and maybe you remembered some things that don't make any sense to remember, and you're only remembering it because an old version of it thought that it was important, whereas the newer version would never think that was important.
Okay, so we got to dug into some interesting things. I'm going to bring it back to Brad to wrap it. Basically, the purpose was to explore, give a little more context. For me, what I was looking for is, I guess, the constant theme when we talk about AI and talk about it to an audience is, where are the humans in the loop, right? Like, where are the humans making those critical decisions, setting values, setting parameters, and also those decision processes like we've been talking about in the development of the MCP server and Distrobot and JournalBot, because I think there's, from you both having the experience of building, there's plenty of humans in the loop all the time, right? It is a conversation back and forth, and that is something I think we have to keep in mind while we're building.
Okay, now moving on. Before this show, I asked Distrobot, which is again our corporate agent running in Slack, which sort of handles a lot of our tech stuff and helps us manage all of our coding that we're doing, and it's integrated with our GitHub, which is where we keep our software. And I asked if it could summarize everything that Vaskin, our technical lead, has done. Vaskin Kissoyan, who's the founder of Agentic Insight. So let me just show you what that looks like. All right. He shipped 44 merged PRs. That is really incredible. A PR stands for a pull request. That's like a finished piece of programming, a feature, or some major bug that we fixed. He's created 15 issues. That's stuff that we found that we need to work on. He already closed 9 of those and 6 still open. We did a lot on SEO. Literally, Google was not finding any of our stories, and we had to figure out how to fix that. And we have made a ton of progress on that this week. And we had some security stuff we're working on. We actually had 56 non-public stories that were exposed to the public, and we fixed that. Let's see. We're working on some security stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that I need to do. There's a lot to do. But anyway, the whole point here is we want to show you warts and all, everything that we're doing. Okay. Let's talk about Coding Journal. That's where I write all these articles about my experiences as a coder and what I'm learning as I'm going through this and building all these features and trying to document them. And the goal is to kind of share those experiences for other people who might find them interesting or helpful. But I did also launch Coding Journal, which is a newsletter on Distro, publishing on Distro and using the MCP server for that. But I also launched it on Medium, get people reading on Medium. And then it's actually true that the best experience is on Distro. I found out Medium does not support SVG format graphic, which sounds complicated, but it's just a really cool thing that graphic designers use for their graphics. And you can't do it on Medium, but you can do it. You can embed those in our articles on Distro. So I figured that out. But anyway, I'm now publishing on Medium. And let's just go to next week's topics. Well, the big thing is Distrobot Saves the Day. That's a book that I wrote. It's really just a direct, almost a verbatim our Slack from when we created Distrobot, and then 18 days to where we finished our agentic newsstand pilot project. And it was really one of the most fascinating experiences of my life, working with this agent. Distrobot was coaching me through these very technical things that I had no business doing, and I could not have done it without. We could not have done that thing without Distrobot. Anyway, it's a whole book about that. What we want to do is sell that with AI native and payments system. Another thing we got coming next week on Coding Journal, Bubble Arm Brad. It's so stupid. You're going to love it. That's it for this week on DistroCast. Glad you joined us. We're building in the open. You can join our journey by checking out our YouTube page at Distro Media HQ. And you can check out all the stuff we're publishing on app.distro.media. I'm Brad Keoun, Distro founder, and we'll see you making headlines.